don't know if you want to live in that parallel universe for a little bit, but like just the idea that we could still have the Olympics and Team Canada, obviously, there's still so much talk about who could be on the team and whatnot. And Andrew Mangiapane's name that likes to be thrown around as a dark horse and all that. But yeah, I'm really still pretty curious about what that team is going to look like, who's going to be there. I have no clue. I mean, not to say I have no clue, but there's some obvious names there. But it is fun to put together those rosters. And I'm curious, with like a month out from the opt-out date and however long until we get those rosters out, like what what Bill Armstrong and some of those other GMs are thinking right now.
Well, I think they're knocking names off the list kind of unofficially. I mean, obviously those players could still be allowed to get there. There could be injuries, like things could happen. Like no one's out. But I think what they're doing is they're narrowing the pool to reach a consensus of where they need to be. And, it sounds like they're maybe down to like 5 forward spots or 4 forward spots that are still up for grabs, which isn't crazy. Like if we could, I think we could both name the first 6 forwards on the team where there's really no debate about. And that's been the case since last August or, 2 years ago. But what's interesting is I think Zach Hyman has a real shot to make this team.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know if you've noticed his play of late. Like he scored a goal in Vegas a couple days ago where he fights off Mark Stone, who's the ultimate puck hound. I think that's where a lot of the discussion is right now is, okay, we know the star players that are going to play, we know the guys that are going to be expected to score on this team. But I think that they're still carving out some of the roles for, the bottom of the roster. And the bottom of Team Canada's roster is a first liner on an NHL team. But yeah, I think that you're looking at guys like a Ryan O'Reilly, Zach Hyman, maybe Mark Scheifele. I think even Tom Wilson's in the mix. I don't know to what degree, but I think they're looking.
Really?
He's definitely under consideration. It's hard to, look at. No one's coming out and saying this is exactly as it is, but I'm basically piecing together different conversations, different understandings of how they view players. And, I do think that they're looking at how they want that sort of fourth line-ish to look / maybe even, you can bring 14 forwards to this tournament. Just basically what roles do people fill? Who's going to win a big face-off for you in the defensive zone in a tight game? Who's going to kill a penalty for you? I mean, for Team Canada, they're a bit fortunate because Brad Marchand is an excellent penalty killer, as is Patrice Bergeron, but they're also, obviously very effective, offensive players. But beyond them, the top players on this roster, whether it's a McKinnon, a Marner, a Crosby, these guys aren't killing penalties, basically. I mean, Marner does in Toronto, but I don't think Team Canada necessarily wants that. Doesn't mean they wouldn't use that, but they're looking for role players. And so, and again, superstar role players. And so I think that's where the discussion is. And Hyman, to get back to complete that earlier thought, is I just think he's surging right now. The focus of the management group is on a small collection of forwards, of which I know he's a part of. And look, there's still going to be 5 weeks or so till that decision is finalized. So, there's time. He's got to keep it up. But I think he's very much put himself in the conversation, not even just because he plays with Connor McDavid a fair bit, but, the way he's kind of grown his game. And I wouldn't have guessed that. I'd say if we had this discussion December 2nd, 2020, and you're like, hey, look at the 2022 Olympic team, I wouldn't have been saying Zach Hyman, but the closer it gets, the more real or more possible that seems.
I feel like that kind of answers the follow-up question I had and maybe it would have been a little different. Maybe he would have made changes if he stayed with the Leafs, but I wonder how much more consideration or how much less consideration Zach Hyman would have gotten if he stayed in Toronto and continued in the role he was in.
Great question. I mean, he was getting respect in that role too, right? I mean, he always played his whole career. Actually, he's played with Toronto's top players. He was never a third or fourth liner with the Leafs,
right?
From the minute he entered the league. Now he entered the league when they were a young team and all that stuff, but he's been an effective player. But he's added a lot to his game, and I think maybe the fact it's been transported somewhere else, and don't rule out the fact that now you're seeing him with Connor McDavid, who's obviously going to be an important part of the team. I think all those things help him. The fact, I guess, that he made that move and has adapted so well, been productive. Sometimes a change like that takes some time, and I don't sense. I haven't talked to Zach, but I don't sense it's been that big of an adjustment for him. He's he's really, it's been a good fit. You know, I think he's been in a good mental headspace about it. I did sit down with him before the season in September, and I think it's hard to leave your hometown too, right? It's not just like he left the only team he's played for. Like, he grew up in Toronto. His family lives here. His wife's family lives here. They have a young son. There's a real support system for him in Toronto, and so leaving that was an extra layer in addition to the team he grew up cheering for. But I think he understood that he had a real opportunity. I mean, like, as good as the top players are in Toronto, the guys we've touched on this, like the guys playing in Edmonton legitimately are the probably best two players in the world right now. And so, yeah, he doesn't play on McDavid's wing every shift or every night, but he's getting power play time with those players. He's getting a chance maybe to spread his wings, maybe to be seen as something different too, right? Like, he was, I think, a 5th round pick by Florida, traded to the Leafs, like, played in the AHL, had to sort of like climb his way up the hard way, and was always seen as like the paint by numbers guy with the artists, right? Like, he was playing with Matthews and Marner, like these guys with clear offensive gifts, and he was sort of seen as like, you go win that puck battle and get your nose dirty and get them the puck and get off the ice. But I think when he's recruited as a free agent to come there to be a difference maker, like he's seen differently, and I think he sees himself differently. I think he recognized the opportunity there, and so it's an unknowable question that you've asked, but I think it's the smart one, because there is a world, I think, where had he just stayed in Toronto, done what he always did, maybe he wouldn't get the same attention. But now, even Ken Holland, the GM who recruited him, who is now his GM, is part of the management team for Team Canada. So, I think all those things, I'm not saying that Ken Holland's the one going to put him on the team, but he's just getting seen. More people are getting to know him too, right? Like, that's part of it. And anyway, you heard it here first, or close to first. I will not be surprised. I will not be surprised if he's named to that team.